Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Israel launching strikes against Houthi rebels after their attacks on the Jewish state and after their wars against Hamas and Hezbollah. Israel sees hope for a new Middle East, including perhaps a new government in Iran. But another threat could be rising as Turkey appears to be preparing for a military battle against Kurds in Syria. Here at home, a shutdown showdown as congressional Republicans along with President-elect Donald Trump and Elon Musk, reject a proposed spending bill, leading to the possibility of a government shutdown starting Friday night. And senators from both parties calling out the Federal Bureau of Prisons for discriminating against faith-based nonprofits, including those who lead people to Jesus. All those stories and more are ahead today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this Thursday in the Middle East, where Israel is striking back at Houthi rebels in Yemen for launching missiles at the Jewish state. And after their wars with Hamas and Hezbollah, including a potential release of the hostages, Israel is now seeing great opportunities in the region, including possibly a new government in Iran. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl is on this story.
Israel hit the rebel regime in Yemen early Thursday after the Houthis launched another missile at Israel, one of several fired at the Jewish state in recent days.
The IDF conducted precise strikes on Houthi military targets in Yemen, including ports and energy infrastructures in Sana'a.
Meanwhile, Israel's prime minister is set to huddle today with top officials on a hostage deal that may be fast approaching. It may include a 6-week ceasefire in exchange for Hamas freeing 30 of the remaining 100 hostages. In Gaza, Israel's top general said Israeli troops continue to do their part there.
We're exerting pressure on Hamas daily, driving it into greater distress to ensure the return of the 100 hostages.
The hostages came up in the United Nations Security Council Wednesday, where a hostage family member spoke directly to the council for the first time ever.
Your silence is deafening. Your inaction is suffocating.
Even a top UN official admitted what's happening to the hostages is a travesty.
I remain appalled that there are reasonable grounds to believe that hostages may be subject to ongoing sexual violence and abuse.
Highlighting Iran as the source of Mideast turmoil, top Israeli diplomat to the UN, Danny Danon, said the IDF's severe weakening of Hamas, Hezbollah, and the fall of the Assad regime in Syria presents a golden opportunity in the region.
The chance to finally end the Islamic regime of Iran's aspirations for a Shiite supremacist empire.
And Danon spoke directly to the people of Iran to rise up.
Do not miss this rare historic opportunity. Take action now. The people of Israel stand by your side.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
As Israel enhances its border security against Islamic militants in Syria and Lebanon, Turkish President Erdogan is increasing the presence of his troops in a key region. Appearing on this week's episode of The Global Lane, investigative journalist Kenneth Timmerman says he believes Turkey is preparing to engage in direct conflict with Kurds in northeastern Syria.
That would be an absolute disaster for the United States and for the Middle East for one simple reason. Those Kurds who have been financed by the United States, who are American allies and have been for decades, those Kurds are protecting prison camps where there are an estimated 45,000 to 50,000 ISIS fighters and their families. As of a week ago, the Kurds were saying they were down to half the number of prison guards that they had normally because the Turks were shelling them every day. If this offensive takes place and those ISIS fighters are released, this is going to be an absolute disaster for Syria and for the Middle East and for the Christians of Syria who still remain there.
Well, we could see a reestablishment of the Islamic State and the Caliphate, but on to Israel. They've been conducting regular military operations in Syria ever since the fall of Assad. Are they clearing out air defenses so IDF pilots can have smooth sailing across Syria to Tehran? What are they up to?
Well, we believe that they had already taken out most of Syria's modern air defenses, the S-300 radar in particular, when they attacked Iran, counterstruck Iran in October. And at that point, they did hit one of the nuclear facilities. I think the Israelis are going to wait until Donald Trump is back in office before taking any additional action against Iran. But I could be wrong. You know, Bibi has done really God's work in destroying Syria's navy, in destroying their air force since the fall of Assad. He wants to make sure that dangerous weapons, including chemical weapons stockpiles, don't fall into the hands of Harat Tahrir, the HTS group that now is, we believe, ruling Syria. And I think the Israelis really deserve our thanks for doing that.
And now several of your stunning revelations about Iran in your book, The Iran House. You provide documentation of communication between a Biden administration official and a top Iranian, encouraging the Iranians to attack the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Explain more.
This is a really extraordinary story. The first thing is that I was involved in the intelligence gathering that helped President Trump make his decision, which is, I believe, was a very courageous decision to take out Qasem Soleimani, Iran's top terrorist, because I learned through this network of sub-agents that I was running for the U.S. intelligence community that Soleimani was going to lead an assault on the U.S. embassy in Baghdad. President Trump did not want that to happen. He didn't want to see another Benghazi. He knew how disastrous that was. He ordered, to begin with, 100 U.S. Marines to fly up from Kuwait to protect the embassy, and then he ordered that strike on Qasem Soleimani. Later, I learned from another Iranian sub-agent that the attack on the U.S. embassy in Baghdad was not just a plan by Iran's Quds Force. It was actually requested in August of 2019, so over a year earlier, by a senior advisor to then candidate Joe Biden. He was in contact with the Iranian foreign minister. They had known each other from the Obama administration, and they had a series of communications which were provided to me by a former very top Iranian military and intelligence official. I have a chronology of those communications in the back of the book, as well as facsimiles of some of the actual communications between the senior Biden advisor and the Iranians. Again, let me emphasize this because it's absolutely extraordinary. It is treasonous. He asked the Iranian regime, will you do the same thing to our embassy in Baghdad that you did to our embassy in Tehran in 1979? Take our diplomats hostage, seize the embassy. You know, the Democrats have been really obsessed with what they called the October surprise ever since the 1980 election. They were hoping to create another October surprise that would prevent Donald Trump from winning re-election in 2020. This one turned out not to be the one that worked. They had other things up their sleeve, but their plan was to get the Iranians to take the U.S. embassy and keep U.S. hostages throughout the 2020 election campaign.
And that would be considered treason against the United States, and that official's still in the Biden administration. So what do you think will happen after the administration exits next month?
Well, I can tell you that Kash Patel at the FBI has access to the same documents that I had access to because my subsource provided them to the FBI, and I corroborated that, and I worked with the FBI to make sure that they had those documents. I hope that he opens an investigation. Obviously, during the Biden administration, they did not want to investigate, and they did not investigate, but I hope that investigation will be launched by Kash Patel.
Okay, many more revelations. The book is The Iran House, Tales of Revolution, Persecution, War, and Intrigue. Ken Timmerman, thank you for taking the time to share your insights with us. We appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Gary. It's a great pleasure.
Also on this week's episode of The Global Lane, Syria's new leaders say he will impose Islamic law in the country. We're going to look at how that may affect Christians there this Christmas and the historic truth about St. Nicholas and Santa Claus. You can see it all on The Global Lane this evening on the CBN News channel. It begins at 8 Eastern. You can also see it on the CBN News app or watch on YouTube. Coming up, a revolt in Congress led at first by Elon Musk and then President-elect Donald Trump leads to the death of a major spending bill and a possible government shutdown. And with public trust in the news media hitting record lows, now people are turning to new sources of information. We're going to have those stories for you when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
The clock is ticking towards a possible government shutdown, which could come at midnight Friday. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are working on new legislation to keep the government operating. As CBN's Lori Johnson reports, Elon Musk blew the whistle on the enormous bill, which was rejected by numerous Republicans in Congress, with President-elect Donald Trump making it clear he wants to see it rejected.
The 1,500-page spending bill that included pay increases for members of Congress and would have kept the government operating through March is dead after receiving enormous backlash. President-elect Trump issued a statement that Congress should pass a bill without Democrat giveaways, combined with an increase in the debt ceiling before he takes office on January 20th. Elon Musk, tapped to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, said any member of the House or Senate who votes for this outrageous spending bill deserves to be voted out in 2 years. Members of the conservative House Freedom Caucus also complained the bill was packed with wasteful spending. Democrat leaders are angry over the bill's demise.
House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse.
The bill includes $100 billion in disaster relief aid for communities affected by Hurricanes Helene and Milton and other natural disasters.
I feel very strongly. We don't get disaster in the bill. I'll do everything I can to keep us here until we do.
A government shutdown would mean some federal government workers could head into the holidays without paychecks, including TSA agents and air traffic controllers. However, Social Security and Medicare recipients would still receive their benefits. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
President-elect Donald Trump has been shaking up Washington and the political world even before he takes the oath of office in January. One major change is already underway. The media landscape is shifting and traditional outlets are scrambling to adjust. CBN's chief political analyst David Brody explains.
Donald Trump's win in November caused seismic waves felt all across the country, and it shook up more than just politics. It served as a clear wake-up call to legacy media outlets. Veteran journalist Howard Polskin now reports on the media.
They're doing soul searching, and I think it's going to be reflected in some of the content we see on the air and on websites and in newspapers. I think everyone is going to be a lot more measured.
MSNBC hosts Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski quickly saw the writing on the wall.
They are overseeing a sinking ship. Joe and Mika you could think of as the captains of the USS Resistance.
This worshiping of Hitler's power.
After being vocal Trump critics, they met with the president-elect at Mar-a-Lago and are now starting to play nice.
Joe and I realize it's time to do something different. And that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
Curtis Houck with Newsbusters says their move makes sense based on ratings alone. Following the election, MSNBC's total viewership dropped 38%. CNN down 27%. Houck sees this as desperate times.
Part of that desperation is going to meet with the fascist himself. And they've admitted in previous weeks that they want to do the show differently, which I take that to mean perhaps go back to the Morning Joe that it used to be.
But it might be too late to do any good. Trust in the media has been fading for years. Back in 1972, only 6% of Americans said they didn't trust the media. By the Clinton years in 1997, that number increased to 15%. When Trump first took office, it jumped to 24%, and now, after 8 years later, 36% of Americans don't trust the media at all. John Solomon is the CEO of Just the News.
That is such an extraordinary number. It should be a shockwave in newsrooms across this country. Unfortunately, most newsrooms are still in denial. So I fear the pattern of misreporting, of loss of audience, loss of connection with audience, loss of perspective with audience is going to continue.
And we're already seeing a trend of out with the old and in with the new. Trump took advantage of this and added a new wrinkle in 2024 by reaching out to podcasters, streaming services, and social media influencers.
You saw him go after podcast platforms. He talked to his son, Barron, about this. He had a young comms team that thought about where do young people get their news.
Houth believes Trump has changed the way campaigns will communicate in the future. More emphasis on casual connection and far less on what's seen as traditional media.
Candidates venturing into the podcast sphere, new media atmosphere, whatever you want to call it, is this generation's question of yesteryear of which candidate would I want to get a beer with.
This new playing field could pit two media classes against each other, with the battle playing out at the White House itself. The legacy media has encamped in the briefing room for decades. Solomon, though, recounts a conversation with Trump in 2020 when talk had already begun about shaking up how business is done.
I would not be surprised if you saw in a few weeks the announcement of a creation of a new White House Correspondents Association and an alternate Correspondents Association.
That could mean a group of more conservative outlets and possibly popular podcasters.
Maybe create a second press room. Maybe it's in the old executive office building, which was where the discussions were in August of 2020, and let new media come in and let's see who covers the press conference more accurately, more fairly.
Whether that happens or not, it's clear this new media landscape is spreading from print and television to the social media terrain. With X now owned by Trump-supporting Elon Musk, liberals are fleeing in droves, moving to Blue Sky, started by Twitter founder and former CEO Jack Dorsey.
The news environment is going to be it's going to be atomized even more. So now you're going to have social media platforms just for mainstreamers and liberals. You're going to have some just for the near right, and you're going to have social media for the far right. That's just how the media business is going these days.
And it's all moving very fast, just the way Trump likes it. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Still ahead, a bipartisan effort in the Senate to call out the Federal Bureau of Prisons for discriminating against faith-based nonprofits, including those which lead people to Christ. We're going to bring you the story right after this. A bipartisan effort in the Senate is focusing on the Federal Bureau of Prisons for discriminating against faith-based nonprofits. As Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London reports, two senators are crossing the aisle to get answers.
Republican Senator James Lankford says he and Democrat Gary Peters will continue to push federal prison leaders until proper changes are made.
I think Jesus lives in prison because it seems like so many people meet him while they're there. Great. I would tell you that the love of God pours out to individuals regardless of their past.
Senator Lankford believes the incarcerated can also discover God's love and transformative power when offered faith-based programs approved under the First Step Act. Tested and proven around the country, he's witnessed how they can drastically reduce the number of repeat offenders.
I talked to a young man that was in a program in a state prison, that he had a faith-based experience that was there. It's been dramatic for him and the turnaround in his life. He is now a person that's actually leading and is actually mentoring young people in that.
Lankford says we should be hearing more of these success stories, but that hasn't been the case.
Well, the Bureau of Prisons has failed to actually act on that. They're not allowing these different faith-based entities to actually get into the Federal Bureau of Prisons and to actually do these programs.
To change that, Lankford recently teamed up with Homeland Security Chairman Gary Peters. They wrote Bureau of Prisons Director Colette Peters, calling out discriminatory practices, citing how the implementation of recidivism reduction partnerships appears stagnant. The letter also pointing out that of the 8 faith-based applications received, the Bureau denied 5, only approved 2, and left the other pending.
She is the director there, and it is her responsibility to be able to make sure that there's equal opportunity provided. You should not have a situation where people of faith are literally blocked out of something, especially something as important as anti-recidivism.
The programs fall under the First Step Act, signed into law in 2018 by then-President Trump. It requires the Bureau to help incarcerated people obtain a valid form of ID, like a driver's license or Social Security card, and assist individuals applying for federal and state benefits. Plus, under the Act, wardens are encouraged to enter into recidivism-reducing partnerships with faith-based organizations and other nonprofits. Now, 6 years later, Langford says the Bureau of Prisons has still not acted on FSA's requirement.
We don't want people that are in prison to end up in prison over and over and over again. If they can have life change while they're in prison and they end up reconnecting with their family, get a job, actually get into society, that's better for everybody.
After I reached out to the Federal Bureau of Prisons about Senator Langford's concerns, its spokesperson replied they only discuss matters directly with congressional members. Senator Langford says he's already planned a follow-up meeting to ask them for next steps. Michelle London, CBN News, Washington.
And we're coming back with an encouraging word for your day. Stay with us.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel Live. CBN News, because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today.
Time now for your Thursday Thankful. I invite you to join me in this prayer of gratitude. God, thank you for the gift of rest. In rest, there is refreshing. In rest, there is renewal. And in rest, there is restoration. I stand ready to rest and receive them all. And I'm thankful for rest. With this prayer, may we all make this a thankful Thursday. That will do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Thank you so much for watching. You can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. Take a moment. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. We'll see you tomorrow.